How's that for a picture? Isn't that beautiful? Almost in Banff, just about there. I wanted to pull over because I've got an experience that I really wanted to read today for you. It's almost unbelievable. It's a great story about forgiveness. And after a man suffered the most unimaginable loss you can imagine. Here we go. March 1st, 2008 is a date that will be forever emblazoned in Terry Caffey's memory. About 3 in the morning, my wife and I awoke to the sound of our doorknob hitting our dryer in the laundry room, which was next to our bedroom. Very quickly, gunfire began to erupt, the loudest sound you could ever imagine. That evening, Terry lost everything he had. In the early hours of the morning, while he and Penny Caffey slept in their home in a rural area near Emory, Texas, 2 men entered their home and began firing. I took several rounds in the arm and in the shoulder, he says. I took 1 round in the right cheek, and that round blew out my left ear. That would be the shot that would blow me out of my bed. The intruders killed Penny and the couple's 2 young sons, Matthew and Tyler. They shot Terry 5 times, then set the house on fire. As the flames raged around him, Terry regained consciousness. When I realized I could not save Penny, I crawled toward the woods at the back of our house. We lived out in a rural area, very dark, very few houses around. My closest neighbor was 400 yards away, and that was Tommy and Helen Gaston. I knew that if I died right there, something told me that maybe they would get away with it. Somebody had to tell who did this. I remember hearing just kind of a bang on the door, Tommy Gaston recalls. I opened the door and said, "Terry, what's happened?" And my first question was, "What about Penny and the kids?" And he said, "They're dead. They're all dead." The young man who had burst into Terry's bedroom that evening was Charlie Wilkinson, a former boyfriend of Terry's 16-year-old daughter, Erin. After Terry was taken to a local hospital, he learned that Erin was still alive. When I heard that, I had a sense of hope again, that maybe she needed me and I needed her. Maybe together we'll figure this thing out. What went wrong? What happened? That hope was crushed moments later. My sister told me Erin's been arrested for involvement in the murders. When I heard that, I just lost it. I remember grabbing at IVs and tubes that were in me, trying to pull them out. The news shocked the community. Those who knew Erin say she was a quiet, shy girl and a good student who sang in the Miracle Faith Baptist Church choir. Then she began dating Charlie Wilkinson. We began to see signs in Erin. She began to not dress like she normally would. The things she was interested in, she wasn't interested in anymore. She seemed to have lost that smile. She had just kind of distanced herself from her youth group and got to where she didn't want to sing at church anymore. One day, Erin left a computer on and Penny saw Charles' MySpace page, which was filled with profanity and references to alcohol and sex. The Caffeys told their daughter she could not see him anymore. She held her head down and began to weep. She said, "Daddy, I've been wanting to break up with him for some time, but I just don't know how to." But some friends say she and Charlie began plotting to either run away or murder her parents so they could be together. They enlisted 2 other teens to assist them. In the wee hours of March 1st, after drinking heavily, they decided to follow through with their plans. There's no doubt in my mind that there was a demonic, evil presence in my home that night. Terry was eventually released from the hospital and began to put his life back together. He read through the book of Job several times, trying to find a purpose in the tragedy. One day, he returned to the site of his former home to salvage any final memories. While walking through the ruin, something caught his eye. It was a page from the novel Blind Sight by Christian author James Pence, but Terry believes it was a letter from God. I went and I stood on the ashes of the place where I had a home and raised 3 children. I was angry. I said, "God, why would you allow this? How could you let something like this happen? Why am I still here? I just don't understand all of this." And no sooner than I said that prayer or had that thought, I looked over, about 5 feet away. There was a piece of paper stuck to the base of a tree. When I read it, they were the words I had just spoken to God. I couldn't understand why you would take my family and leave me behind to struggle without them. And I guess I still don't understand that part of it. But I do believe that you are sovereign. You are in control. And when I read those words, it just brought me to my knees. I remember just falling to my knees, and I began to weep to God. God had just sent me a message. For the first time since the murders, he felt at peace. Basically, what he said was, Terry, I'm not going to give you all the answers right now. You may not have all the answers ever. But what he did tell me is that, Terry, I've got your life in the palm of my hand. As the trial approached, Terry knew he would have to forgive his daughter and the other teens that murdered his family. Of course, they were all blaming one another. The detectives were saying that Erin was the mastermind, that she was the evil one. But none of that really mattered to me, because I had chosen that I needed to forgive them. And forgiveness isn't always easy. Terry even petitioned the lawyers trying the case not to seek the death penalty. All 4 teens pled guilty and received life sentences for their involvement. When Erin's sentencing date came, Terry stood right beside his daughter. It just shows you the power of God, what God can do in your life if you just submit to Him and allow Him to work in your life. Terry has since remarried and is now pursuing ministry full-time. He feels that God has restored what the enemy had stolen. When nothing in life makes sense, God is good all the time. When our pain seems too great to bear, God is good all the time. When our world is spinning out of control, God is good all the time. We know that God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. All the time, God is good. And now Terry's a minister. You know, for those of you struggling with your faith, or perhaps who don't believe in God, I don't know how you'd explain this horrendous experience. A man loses everything, basically, that he held dear to him. And yet somehow he was able to forgive. Somehow he was able to move forward. Somehow it brought him closer to God. It brought him to the ministry. This is a wonderful story. Anyhow, gonna head on down the road. What a beautiful view, eh? Like that, that is just unbelievable. This is one of the most beautiful spots that I know of. Well, you have a wonderful day, and may God bless you. Bye now.